all these constitutional points of order that I've raised is simply because I watched the Arise News last night.
Is that the television or radio?
Arise Television News. And what was reported was that this hallowed chamber had suspended further consideration of the tax reform bills before the Senate. The reporter even invited the governor of Nasarawa State and pointedly told the governor that now that the Senate had withdrawn, he used the word withdrawn, this tax reform bills, which Arise News described as conundrum, suggesting that they were confusing, they were problematic. What would you say, Mr. Governor? Are you happy that these bills have been withdrawn? And the governor said, I am not just happy because the bills have been withdrawn, but I'm happy because this will now give us a chance for all of us to discuss. Sir.
Arise News.
Yes, sir.
Asked the governor of Nasarawa State.
Yes.
Whether he was happy.
Yes, sir.
That the tax reform bills
had been withdrawn
by the Senate.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, what am I trying to say here? We do not move from one TV station to another. The privilege that we have is the floor of the Senate. This is where we do our deliberations. This is where we make the law. This is where we do effective representation of our people. And if you have issues to clarify, this is also the floor that we have, rather than issuing press statements. Mr. President, we just passed our votes and proceedings. We have just passed our votes and proceedings, which is a reflection of our deliberations of the previous legislative day, being yesterday. Nowhere in our votes and proceedings was it stated that we suspended further deliberations on the tax reform bill, because we did not. And I felt it would be important to place on record that this Senate did not suspend
or withdraw.
I will address that later, sir. This Senate did not suspend and does not intend to suspend deliberations, consideration of the tax reform bills. As to withdraw, Mr. President, this is simply my response. It was a misunderstanding of legislative process for anybody to have even reported that we had withdrawn the bills. The bills were executive bills transmitted to us by the executive arm of government through the office of Mr. President. It's only the executive arm that can withdraw these bills. They are not private member bills sponsored by any senator. So no senator is going to withdraw the bill. And there is no reason for these bills to be withdrawn. In a legislative process, it is normal that some people will have concern. It is normal that people will sit around those concerns and discuss. That is why, in its wisdom, this Senate, in referring this matter to the Senate Committee on Finance, gave them as much as 6 weeks. Our instruction was that deliberate, organize, public hearing, and submit your report not later than 6 weeks. It might not be up to 6 weeks, but if they choose to be up to 6 weeks, nobody will quarrel with them. 6 weeks is long enough in a country that wants progress for a consensus to be reached, for anybody who has concern to sit down and allow such concern to be addressed in overriding public interest. And in any case, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, we are continuing with the deliberation, with the consideration of this bill. We took all I expected the media to report yesterday, which was well reported by some sections of the media, was that the Senate, at its plenary session yesterday, took a further legislative action in the consideration of the bill. And what was the further legislative action that we took? From northwest of Adamu Aleros through the north central of Abamoros to the southeast of Oji Uzo Kalus, we drew out people, distinguished senators, from each geopolitical zone, and we constituted them into an ad hoc committee to, on our behalf, further interface. We were clear about what we were doing. The Senate Committee on Finance is in charge of public hearing, but we set up an ad hoc committee as a further legislative action to, on our behalf, interface. Even the president of the country, called on us to please, interface with the office of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, which ordinarily also would have done in our public hearing. But even then, the executive requested for that. And we have set up an ad hoc committee to do that. So while the Finance Committee is working on its timeline, planning for the public hearing, we want this committee to also quickly engage. And the Deputy Senate President, yesterday in announcing this committee on your behalf, also said the ad hoc committee should treat this matter with urgency, with this power, and that the meeting should start from today. As a matter of fact, Mr. President, the meeting started yesterday. So the essence of what I am saying is that it's important that members of public are patient with us. They understand the legislative process that we have to follow. They understand our role in the Constitution. Any attempt from any quarter to intimidate the Parliament will be undemocratic. And we will not allow ourselves to be distracted. But we will encourage consensus. We will encourage discussions, engagement at all levels. But we cannot be bullied into adopting a certain procedure. As far as we are concerned, the tax reform bills are alive in this hallowed chamber. They are receiving consideration at various levels, and we are open to discussions, to negotiations, to interface. But let it not be said anywhere that we suspended further consideration of these bills. And also, it would be laughable for anybody to also think or say or report that the bills were withdrawn. Because like I said, there are executive bills that can only be withdrawn by the executive. And there's no reason to do so. Because these bills, we believe, are in overriding public interest, and will do everything possible to ensure that across geopolitical interests, across, political parties, across every religious interest, everybody that has concern, civil society, everybody that has concern is given a chance to contribute to the passage of these laws. I thank you, Mr. President, and I conclude by saying that the tax reform bills for us are a work in progress. And we have the next 6 weeks to do this and finalize and pass it. Thank you, Mr. President.